Hi class, my name is Ryan Carney and I'm going to be going over how to use classes in Java. So first up, I have a couple classes that I made. So it's going to be soccer player, soccer team, and soccer team user. Basically, this soccer team user class is just to have a main method where I can kind of use the classes that I've made and create instances and do things to the instances, blah, 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 all that stuff. So you're usually going to have one of these when you're making classes. So first off, I have the soccer player class. Basically, every class that you're going to make, with some exceptions, they're going to have uh, instance variables. So any class that you want to have instances of, um, basically are going to have these instance variables where it has some sort of data that each individual object holds. So it's not a property of the class itself, it's a property of any instance that you invoke of the class. So for example, right here, I have soccer player, player one, and then I have all this data over here. And this is just going to be an instance of the class right here. Same with soccer player two, blah, 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 all that stuff. So these are all instances of the class. And basically, when you are making a new instance, you're usually going to have a constructor. So a constructor is just going to have uh, whatever you would like, but usually they have their parameters as to set the data for the instance variables of the class. So right here, all I'm doing with this constructor is you input their name, their number, their position, and the amount of goals that they have. And you're going to do this when you create any new soccer player. So right here, I have a new soccer player, and then we put soccer player, player one equals new soccer player, and then we have their name, which is Joe Cool, their number, one, their position, goalkeeper, and the amount of goals they scored. And unfortunately, Joe has scored 0 goals. So that is the first constructor that I have for this class. The next one is the copy constructor. And this is basically going to be where you're making a deep copy of another instance of the same class. So this is basically just asking you to put another soccer player in the parameters right here. And then it's going to make a deep copy and pretty just much just give uh the new soccer player that you're making the same data that this player had at the time that you invoked it. Next up, we have the mutator methods, which most of them are just setter methods. As we can see here, set name, set number, set position, and set goals. And these ones are pretty much just going to be where you want to change the data of an instance of a class. So let's say I have a player, he doesn't like his number and he wants to change it. We can do that very easily in Java. All we're going to do is have this public and then void, because in this setter method, we're not actually returning anything. All we're doing is making a change to the data. So right here, we're going to use set number. And then you're going to have your parameter, which is just the new number that you want to set it to. So all it is here is you put in a number that you want, and then it changes the instance's number to whatever the new number is. And this is going to be the same for set name, set position, and set goals. All it does is just change the data to whatever you put in. So if you have a new name that you want to give him, you change the name right here. Same thing goes for position, same thing goes for goals. I also made a score method. This is not a set method or a setter method, but it is a mutator method because it changes the data. So the score method pretty much just makes it so it increases the soccer players goal tally by 1. So, obviously if a player scores in a game, their goal tally is going to go up. So you would just invoke this score method. Next up, we have the accessor methods, which are pretty much also called getter methods. These ones are going to have a return type because you're trying to get information. That's why they're called getter methods. So for this one, get name, we also get number, get position, and get goals. Just pretty much just goes for all the instance variables, all the data that you might be using. And all it does is return whatever the field is that you're trying to obtain. Field is pretty much the same thing as instance variable. It's just the data of a certain instance. So this is get name. So all it will do is return the player's name. And then lastly, we have the toString method. This basically just provides a summary of whatever player or instance that you're trying to do. So for mine, all I did was and then it lists their position using the get position method. So it says the, and their position of the team is, and then their name, and then we have a period, and then it says their number is, and then it gives you the number, and they have this many goals. And then we will see this invoked once I get to the soccer team user class. Next, we actually have the soccer team. Now, this is a good note to go over aggregation. So as we can see, when you're creating a soccer team, it's going to have 11 players in it. And actually, when you're on a soccer team, if any of you play soccer, you'll know that each position has its own kind of set number. So I can go ahead and pull that up right here. Actually, let me see. Okay, so let's see. Here's a good one. So basically when you're on a soccer field, you're gonna have these. So 1 is the goalkeeper, 2 and 3 are the outside backs, 4 and 5 are the center backs, and then you have your midfielders are 6, 8, and 10. And these are going to be your forwards up here. So you have 11, which is the left wing, 9, the striker, and 7, the right wing. So because of this, I went ahead in my code and I made it so each soccer team actually has an array length of 12. Now, obviously, there's not 11 or there's not 12 players on the field, but I think it made more sense to put 12 and then just not use the 0 position because as you can see, there's no actual 0 on the field. So when you're using it, let's say I want to find the 1 of the team, which is the goalkeeper usually, then you can just call the 1 spot. So it kind of makes more sense. Same thing if you were doing like class where you have a month, let's say, and you have an array. You might want to do 32 instead of 31 so you can actually just do the exact day of the month. It just makes more sense when you're actually writing it in code. So for the 0 spot, I just have no matter what soccer team you create, I just said it creates a new soccer player and it just says no player. They just have the number of 100, which you can't even do in soccer, and they have 0 goals, blah, blah, blah. So in this constructor, we're just going to have 11 players, as you can see, soccer players. And so when you're having aggregation, you're going to want to comment it in your code. And a soccer team has many soccer players. And this is obviously true because I'm in my soccer team code right now in the actual class itself. As you can see, an actual soccer team has many players. So basically when you're writing this aggregation as your code, you're just, let's say I have another class that has a soccer team in it. Like let's say I have a city class or something like that. Then I could say a city has a soccer team, that type of thing. And as we can see, a soccer team has many soccer players. So there's many soccer players that are in this class, and you're going to want to comment that in your code. So all I did in this for this constructor was just 11 players, and basically just assigned each player to a certain spot in the array, because that's what the soccer team is, just an array. And I made a couple of methods. So one of them is player at, and basically, let's say I want to find the 6 of the team. So usually it's like the holding mid type thing. You can just invoke this method and have player at 6, and then it returns to you this player right here, and it does it of type soccer player. Now I also have a method called team sheet, and basically what this does is it provides a summary of the whole team. So what I did was I did a for loop, which kind of transverses throughout the whole array, the whole team, and then it just invokes the toString method for each individual player. So now that we have all of this code gone over, we can go to the soccer team user method. So right here, I just made some, random soccer players, and I made 11 players, so hopefully we can fill up a team. And for each one, I put a name, a number, a position, and the number of goals they've scored. We have a pretty unique team right here. Luckily, I made my way into it. So I created a new soccer team, and I filled that soccer team up with all of these players. Now we can run this code of player 3 dot set name, or we can run and see what player 3's name is. So right now it's Freddie Mercury, but we're then going to change his name to John Rooney, and then we are going to print his name out and then do the toString method to just kind of see what it does. So right here we have, first of all, this line executes. So we have Freddie Mercury, and then we change his name to John Rooney. And then we also we do player3.getName again, and it prints out John Rooney. So we can see that the set name method has obviously worked. Then we have our toString method, and it says the left back of the team is John Rooney, and their number is 3, and they have 1 goal. As you can see, we didn't change anything else about Freddie Mercury except his name. So we kept his number, the amount of goals he scored, and also his position. Next, we have, I want to kind of use the team sheet method to just show what it would look like to invoke the toString for everything. So we have this right here. Basically, we have, these 3 lines of original code. I'm actually going to get rid of those real quick. All right, let's see. I'll keep the set name method. All right. So let's say we changed player 3's name to John Rooney, and we want to do team sheet. And we can see it obviously still works. His name is still John Rooney, and all it does is use that toString method on all of the players. Next up, I'm going to go over deep copies. So deep copies are going to be very important when you're actually making code like this, because, so let's see right here. I'm just going to comment this out as well. So this is a good example right here. So I'm making 2 new soccer players. So we have one way of doing it where it says soccer player, deep copy equals new soccer player, and then player 1. Now this is using the constructor that I created in here, where it basically just is a copy constructor. This doesn't just provide a reference to the player that you put in here. It actually takes this player's data, the individual pieces of data, and it copies it to the new player. So then when we go over here, this first line of code right here, all it's doing is just giving whatever properties player 1 has and giving them to deep copy. I also made it one of copy, but if we do soccer player copy equals player 1, all this does is provide a reference to the original player. It doesn't actually make a new soccer player. That's where we have the new soccer player right here. So we can go ahead and invoke these lines of code, these 4 right here, and we should see that they have the same name. Yes, that works. Joe Cool. So we got player 1. Yes, because they are both player 1. So player 1 is Joe Cool. This makes sense. Now I'm going to do player 1 set name to Gary Tuck. Now, based off this, we should see that deep copy should still print out Joe Cool, because it copied Joe Cool at the time where he was still named Joe Cool. And we should see copy.getName. We should see that as Gary Tuck, because it just provides a reference to the player whose name is changed. So let's run that again. And we see, yes, right here. So we have Joe Cool from these two lines of code. But we actually have Joe Cool for deep copy.getName, because it just has the data that player 1 had at that time. And then we actually have Gary Tuck, because it just provides a reference to the original player, which is player 1. So the data changes with it. It doesn't stop right there. That's all I have for classes for you guys. Hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.